Are you rethinking your purpose in life? Being centered in a strong spiritual connection is more important now than ever. Hi, I'm Bryn Blankinship, hypnotherapist, international instructor, and author. Each episode, along with Dr. Pat, I'll share my experiences with guiding spiritual regression clients into the afterlife and the soul lessons gained, prompting you to explore your own soul's journey and empowering you by shifting your perception of yourself and your place in this world. I want you to know that you're here by design, not by accident. You are not alone. You are loved. You are here on purpose, for a purpose. When you stand in your truth and fulfill your purpose, you support others in fulfilling theirs. If this intrigues you, stay tuned in as we explore.
Welcome, everyone. I'm Dr. Pat, and I am taking this beautiful ride, amazing exploration with the most incredible Bryn Blankinship. And, you know, in previous shows, you heard us allude, and we're not going to talk about it a whole lot today unless it comes up, but you heard me allude to the fact that the session that I did with Bryn just opened up so many things. It's really hard to explain it, especially in a short time. But we're going to explain why. Why did that open up some things? So, Bryn, today we're talking about gateways to the afterlife. And I think people don't know that there are gateways with an S at the end of it. So let's talk about gateways because there's a really strong, it's a legacy journey. There's really strong references to people that have said so much, including yourself. You train other people in this. So that is so powerful. So I didn't know there were gateways. What are there gateways? Can we count them? Tell us more about these gateways because people are so hungry to connect.
Yes. And so I thought it would be good to do a show talking about gateways other than Cesar. So a near-death experience is a gateway into the afterlife, right? So is Cesar. Cesar, soul expression, spiritual regression, my technique, allows you to go into that space, but you still are alive and you're able to access information. So with the near-death experience, that is usually through trauma, and Cesar is it's not through trauma, it's through a hypnotic state. Okay, so but they both can take you to a place, and Dr. Raymond Moody introduced this work to, he coined the phrase and he introduced near-death experience as a phenomenon, as a thing. And also Dr. Bruce Grayson of UVA, he expanded that research. And they actually, from the story the way I understand it, Dr. Moody had written his book and was getting bags of letters from readers, and he needed help answering the mail. And Dr. Grayson had an interest in this, and they were colleagues, and so he started helping him. And then he's worked on this research as well. So with near-death experience, that comes through a traumatic state, where with Cesar, we're accessing the afterlife, through a more peaceful way of being. But there are a lot of similarities, and there are transition points. So in a Cesar session, soul expression, spiritual regression, these transition points can be, if there's a past life scenario that we're going through, it could be at the past life death. It can be in the womb when the client, if we go to the womb, when the client is crossing from the womb into the next transition. Often that's into a past life, but sometimes they'll go from the womb right back into the spirit world, like a direct connection there. And, because they're coming from there, their soul is coming from there to get here. Sometimes the soul decides to go back that way. So what's interesting is that clients give similar accounts in a Cesar session that a near-death experiencer describes. Okay, and also I always want to mention Michael Newton because of his work with Life Between Lives, and that's the foundation for the work that I do, and his clients as well went into that space.
Yeah.
And
But
sometimes I
I
have a
also want to
client.
point something else out too. You
Mhm.
know, these people really battled to get the message out.
Yes,
Wouldn't you agree with that? The folks
because
we're talking
people
about?
are afraid of this topic. People have a lot of fear around the topic or lack of understanding. So, they were fought, along the way as they paid, we call them trailblazers for that reason. They made a trail out of a place there was no trail before that. And then others come along, so they kind of paved the way. And now people know what an NDE is, if you say that, if you give that term, or a near-death experience. So
Yeah.
with near-death experience, as I mentioned, that is often through trauma, but that is an out-of-body experience. That is where the person going through the experience, their spirit lifts out of their body and is in contact with the afterlife, those beings of light that come to them and talk to them and say, you know what, it's not your time yet. You have to go back, right? But they are out of the body when they're doing that. And what clients often describe is that they lose their fear of death. There's a sense of peace that comes from that. Now, with Cessor, you're not out of your body. You kind of have one foot in and one foot out, because you've got part of you here communicating and talking with me, and then part of you in that space. And so what we're doing is working at the soul level of the mind to access that information. And so it's a meditative state without trauma. And you're connecting at a soul level. Clients tend to, near-death clients, experiencers tend to refer to that as speaking with God and angelic beings, speaking with source. My clients often talk, I guide them to speak with their soul and other light beings, but usually they say that God is like over there, too brilliant to get that close. So also what's up for interpretation is cultural beliefs. Near-death experiences in the US and in the West are different than in the East, and the descriptions that clients will give. So that comes into play as well. But they're speaking with both types of sessions, you're speaking with higher level beings and you're getting messages.
And part of this too is, let's just mention this for a minute. We don't talk enough about the process and how safe the process is from where I sit, having been through a session with you. But we don't really talk about how beautifully peaceful it is. It's not
Yes.
that things don't come up, they do. But the journey itself is such a beautiful, it's like if you had this gorgeous river and you were just laying out there in this beautiful rowboat, just floating with the river down the stream, wherever it goes,
And
peacefully.
it's like it just washes over you. It lifts heavy
Yeah.
energies. It clears your spirit. The same way the out of body experience change. It's like both of these are life changing because it's helping you to see beyond the small day-to-day things that we tend to focus on. It puts you back on track. There's an unconditional love in that space. As you were talking, I was thinking about a client that I had not too long ago. And she had a list of questions and all these things that she was going to ask when we got there. And we went into that space and they held her in light. She's a writer. She's a creative person. She's doing great, writing her next book and everything that she's doing. They just cradled her in the love and in the light, cleansed her spirit. And they said, and I started to ask the questions she had on the list, and she said, I don't need those. I'm good. And so we just hung out in that space and they filled her with what they wanted to share with her. The same way a near death, the thing about near death experiences, you're receiving what they want to share with you. In my sessions, we're in that space communicating with guides, but we can also direct some questions to them and ask questions, that we have on our list, things that we want to know about. Now, that's not to say in the near death, you can't ask questions too, but you know, you didn't really plan to go into that space,
No.
like at a conscious level. You didn't plan, and you didn't know that morning when you woke up, you were going to be having that experience. So, you know,
But
it is different.
it's different. And here's what I want to say, because we probably will do another show on this, is, you know, when I had my experience, it wasn't typical. It wasn't like we were in a car crash and, like, you know, that's a lot of times you hear those stories, right?
Right.
Mine was very different, but meaning I wasn't in a car crash. I somehow found myself in an ambulance. They said I called. I didn't remember that. I was gone. I was out, but I didn't remember calling them. Whatever happened, I leave that up to, that's a spiritual intervention. But I will tell you, after a year of testing, the whole process changed my life. It changed it severely.
Yeah.
And I want to talk about that, because sometimes you get direct information and sometimes there's just this ultimate guidance. I don't know how to explain it, Bryn.
And it's telepathic communications, whether it's a near-death experience or whether you're doing a assessor session, you're telepathically communicating with beings of light, whether they're angelic, guides, God, you know, if you do have the near-death and have that connection, loved ones, deceased loved ones, you're able to communicate. And then in assessor session, you're getting that information and then you're relaying it back to me. So all of this expansive energetic work is happening. If you can only share like this much in English language, or like after a near-death experience, you know, these are life-changing experiences, but you're trying to put something into earthly language that you can only describe like, it's difficult to describe, you know, even if you can find the right words for it. Some things that are happening, there are no words for. And so clients will come in for a session. And if they mention to me that they've had a near-death experience, we can go back and take a look at that. There are places in the session that we can do that. Oftentimes, clients, you know, want to get more information from their near-death experience, or they're there for something else in the session, but they mentioned to me that they've had a near-death experience. So I'll make notes so that when I'm in that space, I can speak and ask questions, you know, to help get some more information and get some clarification for them.
Yeah.
So both types of sessions, clients are going in, are describing a brilliant light, a bright light. They're going into the light. And in that space, there's like energy that's, you know, moving through them, because their spirit body is out of the physical body enough that it's going through that purification process. And then they come back just, you know, with a new focus in life, messages, clarity, their understanding that they're part of the divine plan. So if I'm working with a client in session, I can also, like, if they said, Bryn, I want to go back to my near-death experience because I have questions, I can regress them to that experience in current life, and we can ask questions about it. But what I would talk to them about this, because what I prefer to do is take them into the assessor space, and then in life review with their guides, then ask questions, because I feel like we can get more information that way, and their conscious mind won't be trying to go back to the experience that they had in current life. You know, and many times on the operating table, you know, clients will die. And that's why it's so important that our medical community understand that they can hear you. When you're operating on a body, they can hear you whether they
That's right.
or not, you know, and
Yeah.
hopefully if they come back in and it was just a near death and it's
That's
not their
right.
time yet, but they know what you're saying, right? And that's the kinds of things that they can report back, because they're in that expanded state of consciousness. We're not alone. And in the life review, and this is both kinds of sessions, because we're bypassing the conscious filter of the mind, but we can access that information in life review or in the Akashic records. It's a spiritual recharge. Sometimes, you know, with near-death experience, it's like a wake-up call. It's your guides coming in and saying, look, we wanted to redirect some things and we'll get you, on track. We wanted to get your attention because of whatever reason they want to share about that. So regardless, clients get clarity, communication,
Yeah.
connection through these experiences. Those, there's similarities, but the differences are that I can direct questions to guides, angels, sometimes
Exactly.
angelic beings come in.
Yeah. I mean, that was my experience, which, of course, for those of you that just tuned in, I keep referencing is a session I did with Bryn, but then I also went back and listened to it again. Shocking, very shocking to me. But I want to talk to this one point because most people don't know what we're talking about now. I mean, when I had my experience, it was 2000, right before I was graduating. But the whole thing, like this whole career path for me, that was going to go be a big consultant, we're going to get paid a lot. I had job offers before I finished, the whole spiel. Then I had to, oh my gosh, it was like, no. No, no, I'm not. I can't do any of that. No, what am I doing? And or everybody around me was like, what is wrong with you? You just went to school for a gazillion years. You've always wanted to do this. Do you need to go get some help? I'm not kidding, Brent.
Oh, I know, I know. And with a near-death experience, your body, sometimes things are healed when you come back in. Beyond that can't be explained with science. I have a colleague who was struck by lightning, and that lightning rewired his whole body. But he also
Wow.
went into the light and had an experience. And I used to tease with him because I would say, I did mine the traditional way through regression, and I chose not to have the whammy that gets you all at one time. I did mine in stages to come to this work and meet with those beings. But they do come in and redirect. And what if there was just one thing I can get across to the listener from today's show
Yeah,
to
come on.
help you find peace and to lose your fear of death. And then if I was going to make a longer list, I would say you're not alone. You're here on purpose, for a purpose. All souls are part of the divine plan. And you have a deeper understanding of that when you get reminded
Yeah,
through a near-death experience or through Cessor. And it saves you from having to incarnate and come all the way back again and start from the beginning of walking and talking and all of that, because you can do so much more in this life. And if you could release fear, maybe you could live a better life. Well, I know you could, not maybe, I know you could. If you can release fear, you can have more joy in your life. You can really enjoy more of your time here because it is so fleeting. And then when it is time to go back, then you have the memory of, that is the good place. This is the tough place. This is the emotional planet we come down here to experience. But there are ways to access the afterlife, and these are the two of the gateways that most most often happen, and we can go back and revisit through Cessor.
yeah. I mean, look, what we're talking about here is we're talking about it so logically, but when we take the reality of how something happens, and then you look back, like where I sit now, it's so easy for me now to look back and see, of course, I wasn't going to get that job. But in order for me to still be here after 22 years, I had to go through trusting the process, even if it cost me my relationship, which literally it did. I mean, imagine being with somebody, Bryn, and you're like, hey, Bryn, honey, you were going to be a doctor. We were going to have a lot of money, like that.
That's not the
And
life we talked about.
that's what do you just gave $15,000 for one show a week on the internet. Hello, what are you doing? And sometimes you have to find the right words, but I think working with you is what helps people with that. Now, I didn't know what that was that happened to me until I started to do the show. And I started to speak with people, and I read your book and, books like it. I didn't get it. And there's something called a near-death experience. And then there's some other new one phrase that came out. I don't remember what it is. But the point is, there's an intervention. Correct me if I'm wrong. There's an intervention that happened that gives you a sense that death is not final, right? You get a sense from people that you're in an energy field. And that small interruption with a great ambulance ride, a full year of neurological testing, which pointed out that at the end, like there was nothing wrong with me, but I'm on the spectrum because I have a certain gift. Now, why did I go through it?
So you could learn that.
There you go. And
And
so when I dial that wrong phone number, I don't hang up, right? Because
yeah,
there's no other explanation for why somebody like me, who is from New York, who worked at the phone company, knows better than to stay on a wrong number. It's just creepy. But I didn't that day. See, this is the message I hope we get across to people, that if we have a sense of things like this, the doors of possibility don't just open, they blast open.
yes. Because people, so I haven't had a near-death experience. I have talked to people who have had them. I know people who have had them, right? And what they say is when I came back, my family had, it was a challenge for them to believe what I was telling them.
Exactly.
So that's what Raymond Moody and Dr. Grayson, that's what their work has done. It's opened up that doorway, and then my work can bridge their work to, we can revisit that space if you've had a near-death experience, or maybe you can relate it a little bit to have an understanding of, what it's like to go into the afterlife, meet with guides, meet with your beings, your team, right? And then they share with you whatever it is they want to share. Now, in a near death, they called for that to happen. They're like, we're gonna connect with you this way. In assessor session, they still called for that to happen. They said, you're gonna go on the internet and you're gonna find this person, Bryn Blankinship, and you're gonna do this session with her. So when I'm doing a session, one of my questions is, what prompted your guides to call for today's session, right? Like, because my client might have a list.
Yeah.
They do have a list, but
Yeah.
I don't want to miss the one main point that the guide wants to get across, along
Yeah.
with all the other stuff they want to answer as well.
I know for me, it wasn't like I planned it. It was just I was at an uncomfortable place in my journey when
You did
everything
plan
around
it at a soul level,
at a soul level.
right?
But it's kind of like when people, I don't talk about it a lot because people ask, why did you do it? I mean, what's wrong? What's wrong? What's going on in your life, right? I'm like, I just felt like I needed to know more.
And this is beyond religion.
It is beyond
This
religion.
is not religion. We are spiritual beings. We just are. And we're in a human body. So we're going into spirit to communicate with our highest self and other beings who are there to support us while we're here, right? We already know at a spiritual level, we're trying to get that information down here
Yeah.
at the human level
Yeah.
and try to get some clarity so that we can move forward smoother, better, more peaceful. If you have more peace in your body, then you have less worry, less fear. Your health improves. You're not burning all your energy with worry about what could happen. Things happen that are out of your control. But then when you try to manage them, you can
Yeah.
move forward smoother and more grounded,
Yeah.
in touch.
I love that you talked about this being spiritual, not religious, because there's so many things I learned with that philosophy being influenced. But I remember one time my Mama Dara said to us girls, it I'm never going to do it right, but she said something like, girls, y'all, I'm just giving you messages. I'm just trying to get, this is about us learning, life, heaven is what you make it. I mean, and she went off on it, but she would always share one story about it not being religion. Why did she do that? Because she married my dad. And they tried to convert her to Catholicism, and they weren't going to do it because she was divorced. Now,
Right.
the deal is this. There are stories everywhere that point to the expansive energy of spirituality. Jesus walking out of his way to go to Samaria to meet a woman who he knew had like 5 husbands or something, sitting somewhere, talking with her on purpose, and revealing to this woman that was not exactly the best of integrity, the first person he revealed he was the Messiah. You see,
Mm.
that broke all of the religious boundaries, doesn't it? But you see, there are so many of these things. What's the message you want to leave us with here today? Because what we're talking about is such a universal energy that transcends religion, isn't it?
Yes. So the message is that we're not alone and help is available, and we just need to learn how to tune in. And we all have that ability to do that, right? I'm just trying to open those doors for people so that they can learn how to do this for themselves. So we can do this in a session, but maybe learning about, reading about, hearing about somebody else's session helps open some doors in you. And then you start to, things start to click and you start to have like an understanding of how your guides are communicating with you. They've already been communicating. Sometimes we miss it. Sometimes we get it. So, and finding peace, if I can help you find some peace in your life and help you de-stress, then that's important too.
It
Because
is.
enough stressors in the world, we don't need that.
No, we don't. But part of it is it also gives us insight in ways that we couldn't have planned. And that's really the takeaway for me on this is the more we can talk about this to really help people, encourage them to understand that we are guided. Now, the question mark is, are we awake and aware enough to know that? And honestly, at the time it happened, I wasn't. But somehow I ended up here today having a conversation with an expert in the field, Bryn Blankinship, who not only does this amazing work, but you teach people. What is the best way for people to work with you, and how do they stay in touch with how they can learn to do this themselves?
So brynblankinship.com, BRYN, Blankinship with an I. And that's the website. And you can also follow me at Bryn Blankinship Author on Facebook, Bryn Blankinship Author on Instagram. We post some things there throughout the week, and you can stay in touch that way, or sign up for the newsletter. I don't do newsletters, or I do them infrequently, but I do them when I have something to say, because we're posting more often on social media. And the show,
Exactly.
if I have something to say, I do it on the show, and that's a great way to tune in.
Yeah. And for those of you out there, every little tidbit I share has been so instrumental, because every one of us comes up with doubts. We have fears, we have hesitation, we have all sorts of people outside around us being like, what are you doing? And yet, what you can learn from this is to trust your
And
soul.
it's not that you don't have fear, it's that when you have the fear, you recenter. And the more you can learn to do that, you do have less fear and more trust in the guidance that you're being given, right?
Yes,
It's
exactly.
teaching you, it's what you said, it's teaching you that trust, but you have to go through the process to learn to trust.
Yes. Bryn, thank you so much for today. Stefan, thank you. And to all of you out there, step into the world of possibilities and step into the world of even unknown, unlimited possibilities, because the answers are there. Get a hold of Bryn. We'll see you next time.
You've been listening to Afterlife Teacher, Soul Lessons bringing you full circle with Bryn Blankinship and Dr. Pat. Tune into Transformation Talk Radio for more discussions of the soul's journey across different lifetimes and soul lessons gained, helping you to consider the deeper reason you are here. Bryn shares her wisdom spanning 20 years of guiding spiritual regression clients into the afterlife and connecting them with their spiritual team and soul's purpose to bring them full circle, helping you gain insight into your own soul's purpose while supporting others in fulfilling theirs. Living in partnership with your soul, with less worry and greater trust, you can be in divine flow and thrive. For more information on becoming a certified hypnotherapist and regressionist and assisting with the global transformation taking place, visit brynblankinship.com.